Emily's relationship with Thomas evolves through a series of tense and emotional moments, but an unexpected gunshot and the subsequent emergency surgery plunge everything into uncertainty. Will Thomas make it through safely? How will their relationship develop? As Emily and Thomas's relationship develops, unknown crises are looming. Subscribe to our channel to stay updated. Chapter 23. All of a sudden, I heard the breaking of my locked handle, Weston's figure appearing at the frame of my door. He stood for a second, taking in his bearings. Then his eyes met mine. It was full of despair and worry. He was scared that something happened to me. I felt the tears rolling down my cheek while my stomach churned with disgust and fear. But what I couldn't decipher was the newfound courage I had. The bravery I had before wasn't as effective as it is now. I guess it was a wolf thing. I stood still, my hands and fists at my side. My teeth were clenched, and once again, a small growl escaped. I could feel my vision getting blurry to a higher contrast, then back to normal again. Ace? Thomas asked with caution, taking few small steps towards me. Why did you just throw the plate? I said nothing, just watched as he neared me. And when he had enough of his cautious approach, he took 3 long strides and threw his arms around my small body. I put my face in the crook of his neck, breathing in my mate's scent. Like what I wanted, I found comfort. Because he was not wearing a shirt yet, I felt his muscles through the white thin material of Weston's shirt that I wore. What is happening? I asked, my voice cracking. Look, I promise that I will tell you everything, and you will promise to tell me everything once you take a bath, okay? He said sincerely. He leaned his forehead against mine, boring his green eyes into my own. Please, for me, he said through our link. I groaned. Can't you just tell me first? Showers can wait later. Nope, he said, flicking my nose. He pulled away from me, scrunching his nose up. Besides, you stink. I smiled and let out my extraordinary laugh. I could not believe that he could make a joke after everything that happened today, and it was only morning. Thomas joined in my laugh and kissed my temple. You know, you're such an idiot sometimes, I replied. And you're an idiot all the time. I scoffed and punched his abs light, afraid of the strength that I have been given. You're mean. And go put a shirt before you kill my eyesight. What? This, Thomas said and gestured to his body. This is sexy. I snorted and rolled my eyes. Fine. If you haven't noticed, I don't find you attractive. Weston's eyes became challenging and narrowed. I gulped as he took a step closer to me this time, his heat radiating onto my body. He slipped his hands around my waist and rubbed his hands up and down in circular motions, before resting them at the small of my back. He pulled me into him until his muscles pressed against my body. Keep in mind, I was wearing nothing but this shirt. I mean literally nothing but the shirt. He bent his head down and pressed his lips lightly at the dip in between my collarbone, making me shiver. Goosebumps made their way onto my skin. He left a hot trail of light kisses until he met the crescent moon mark. The mark he made, and that is when I thought my knees would go weak. I moaned softly, leaning my head for him to gain better access. I felt his lips stretch into a smile before he kissed it again, making me moan louder this time. His nose trailed up my neck until his lips reached my ear. He whispered, babe, I think you're sexy. Especially in what you're wearing. It's only fair if I made you believe I'm attractive too. Then he laughed as I slapped his shoulder, going red all over. You are the worst boyfriend ever, I said, stalking off to the bathroom and lowering my head in embarrassment. So tell me first why you threw the plate, Thomas asked, stroking my hair. We were cuddling, I guess you could put it, on my bed after we both had taken separate showers. We were fully dressed appropriately, thank God. I was lucky to find some of the clothes my brother doesn't use for Thomas to wear instead of him going back and forth. I sighed, looking at the now clean floor. Thanks to Aunt Felly. She hasn't bothered me today yet because she knew I was in a bad mood. However, she did give me a lecture. Your mama is only doing what's best for you, and God only knows how rude you were to your mama, she said in her southern accent. I played with Weston's fingers before finally answering. The silver bullet decided to make a visit. I felt him tense up, his fingers frozen in my hair. What? He began to raise his voice. He began to get up, but I pushed him back down, tired of arguing for once. Wes, calm down, please. No, I will not. Emily, he's been in your room for the second time now. What if he decided to come in your sleep? And Weston, I'm fine. We'll cross that bridge when we get there. We'll just have to figure out my options. However, let's not talk about it. I'm tired of immaturity. Emily, no. He sighed, running a hand through his hair. At least just tell me what was on the plate. Well, it was just the porcelain plate from my brother's party last night. On top of it was this brown bottle filled with poison, I believe. The same poison that Mom had gotten. The plate read something about being careful and that my mom was lucky, saying how easy it is to get close to my loved ones. I felt the tears begin to form because of my fear. That explains the wolfsbane, Thomas said with conclusion, rubbing my arm to comfort me. What? I found this, he said, pulling out the brown bottle from his pocket. He opened the cap and my nose scrunched up. Stinks, don't it? I nodded my head and pushed the bottle away. In fact, it felt like my nose was burning now. Thomas put the cap back on. It's wolfsbane. They put it in your mom's food last night to poison her. Wolfsbane is a werewolf's weakness. Like kryptonite to Superman. If you consume it or had physical contact to it, it will cause a reaction that may or may not be deadly to wolves. It wasn't deadly, then you get ill, in this case your mom. So my mom's a werewolf? I asked hesitantly. Yes. In addition, so is your brother. Your family is quite interesting. Yes, your mom was right. The roads are the highest form of werewolves you could find. In fact, higher than the experts. You remember the council my dad is in. Only reason why the roads are not in it is because they have no reason to be. We bow down to whichever roads, human or not. When I heard your middle name, I was going crazy, not wanting to believe you were one of the highest castes. Why am I different? I asked, my voice small as I remembered the look on my mom's face. Why did you say, it's her? Thomas ran a hand through his hair, sighing again. You're a healer. My mouth dropped open and I stuttered the next part. What? I thought you said healers didn't exist. Don't you hate me? I began to panic and get off him, but he chuckled and pushed me back down. Chill. I was confused myself. I would never hate you. I asked your mom while you were in the shower. It happens to be the road's secret. It is the very reason why you people are now number one instead of second to the healers. Because you people are the healers. The roads are interesting. It happened to be that a female healer had survived, mated with a human, and the 4 offsprings were half human and half healer. Therefore, the lines carried after that could only skip a generation before the next batch of healers were born. That means your grandfather is a healer, but your mom is not because it had skipped her generation, making you and your brother the next healers. However, your brother was born a regular werewolf because Mother Nature decided it, I guess. I couldn't contain my shock. My mouth flew open and I had nothing to say. I was speechless and amazed at the information Thomas had given me, but it seemed insufficient. It wasn't enough. I'm not werewolf material. I'm not healer material. Isn't healers supposed to be the bad of everyone? Or is it good? Healers were supposed to heal, right? I don't know anything. That's why you just got to take it slow and get your lazy ass up. We start training tomorrow, Thomas said, ignoring my protest. Chapter 24. I crouched down, my fingertips touching the ground near my feet. My flyaway hairs patted down onto my forehead with sweat. My purple tank top was drenched in sweat, making me scrunch my nose up in disgust of the horrible smell emitting from me. Go. Thomas yelled as I heard the beep of his timer. Just like that, I flew from my position, running where Thomas had told me to run. I felt the cold breeze hit my face, my bare arms and legs, causing goosebumps to form. I ran flawlessly, turning to dodge the trees in the forest while I heard the crunching of leaves beneath my Nike sneakers. My running ability was much better now. I couldn't even run before, but now I was running like Flash. Prior to my new abilities, 1 mile was enough for me, and now I was running a total of 10 miles. My eyesight zoomed up on things that were in the way, telling me to dodge them. Right when my eyes caught the orange cone, beckoning me to turn and run back to where I started, I ran faster. My feet was light on the ground, it wasn't pounding like a normal person. I rounded the cone, running back to where Thomas was. Once I crossed the cone, I heard the beep of the timer again. I had to put my hands behind my head to open up my lungs. I remember the first time I had put my hands on my knees, wheezing, and Thomas barked at me that I was just straining my lungs. I looked up, Thomas looking at his timer in shock before smirking. Wow, babe, Thomas winked. I like fast. Fast is sexy. That earned a slap in the back of the head from me. Stop thinking nasty, I snapped, feeling my wet ponytail in disgust. Well, if you knew I was thinking nasty, then you were thinking nasty as well, he retorted, defending himself. I felt my cheeks heat up and I said, ugh, whatever. Just tell me if I broke my record. Thomas gave me an award-winning smile that made my heart melt. I've never had somebody be so proud of me for something this little. He threw the timer in my face, pointing at the time. Holy crap, I screamed, jumping up and down and giving Thomas a quick kiss on the lips. 4 minutes and 38 seconds. Once I was able to calm down, Thomas smirked at me again, folding his arms across his chest. Now drop and give me 2 push-ups. That's super easy, I shrugged, already dropping down to my hands and feet. 400, babe, Thomas said, amusement lacing in his voice. After 400 sit-ups. What? I yelled, looking at him from the position I was in. You're kidding, right? I can barely do 7. Do I look like I'm kidding? Besides, you are a werewolf now. Anything is possible. I'm doing this for you benefit. I don't care if you're tired, scared, hungry, thirsty, or if you don't like me, he said in a falsetto coach voice. I looked at him stupidly before blinking. Actually, you do. True, he shrugged. Just drop and give me 400. He blew his whistle that he wasted his money on. I rolled my eyes and surprisingly did 400 push-ups and sit-ups in a breeze. I was on my last 10 sit-ups and I felt my stomach muscles roaring in pain, and this was the point I was literally slowing down. Come on, babe, Thomas cheered. Don't stop now. 10 more. Here, I'll give you a quick kiss every time you come up. When I came up, Thomas bent his head to my level and puckered his lips. I looked at him in amusement before pushing him away. Gosh, you're so corny, I said breathlessly. Thomas chuckled, beckoning me to go on. Once I finished my sit-ups, Thomas put his hand on the small of my back before saying, okay, it is time for hide and seek. Excuse me. It's a training process for you to control your heightened senses. Smell, touch, hearing, etc., Thomas said before giving me a cheesy smile. So count to 10 and find me, babe. I closed my eyes, counting to 10 in my head. Hearing his footsteps were kind of hard. I could hear the buzzing of flies, bees, and other insects. However, I forced myself to concentrate on only him, and that's how I knew he went to the right side of the forest. Opening my eyes, I took a deep whiff of the air around me. The smell of forest leaves, pine sap, and finally the sweet smell of my mate. I could feel my wolf pacing around inside of me. Controlling my sense of hearing, I could hear his steady heartbeat and his slow breathing. Following my senses, I looked around the forest, and it took me a while to finally see his outline behind a tree that was about 1 mile from where I was standing in the first place. Bringing myself to a silent jog, I crouched behind several bushes before deciding I was close enough. His back was facing me and he was leaning against the tree, very oblivious that I was there. I jumped out, putting my arms around his waist. Tag, you're it, I tiptoed to whisper in his ear. Thomas turned around in my arms to face me, putting a fake look of disgust on his face. Gross, babe. You're so sweaty and stinky, he said, playfully before putting his arms around me as well. What? I said in shock. This is sexy. Very sexy. You're so vain, Thomas teased, his face nearing mine and his eyes becoming softer. I felt myself begin to relax, my wolf howling in happiness. He gave me a meaningful smile, resting his forehead on mine. He pressed his lips on mine before saying, I have to admit it is sexy. I began to laugh against his lips, smacking his arm as he said, Shut up, I'm trying to kiss my girlfriend here. So that's how our hot steamy makeout session started. Thomas pushed me against the tree that he was leaning on earlier. He was gentle about it but rough at the same time. He kissed me hungrily and I kissed with the same eagerness. He rested his hands on either side of me, pressing his body against my own. I began to nibble slightly on his bottom lip, causing a low, satisfying growl to erupt from his throat. Running my hands in his hair and tugging on it slightly was making him crazy. I would have lied if I said he wasn't making me go crazy too. He licked my bottom lip, asking for entrance, and I happily obliged. A moan escaped my mouth, causing Thomas to smile against my lips. His tongue darted into my own and his taste erupted like fireworks on my taste buds. My fingers found the bottom of his shirt, and I seemed to have no control over myself as I began to lift it up. Thomas quickly met me halfway, pulling away from me and taking his shirt off, discarding it to the ground. He met my lips eagerly again, his hands roaming down my body as if I was a trophy or something. Because he made me feel like I was worth it. A loud moan escaped my lips. So I did the same, my fingers lightly brushing his broad shoulders and the tight skin of his chest and abs. I felt the goosebumps form a trail after my fingers. He shivered at my touch before letting out a moan himself. He picked me up off the ground, making me wrap my legs around his waist. He rested his hands on my butt, squeezing softly. Noticing I was running out of breath, Thomas left my lips, making a trail of kisses down my neck as far as the dip of my collarbone, lightly nipping here and there. He took a big whiff of my scent before growling again and kissing my soft spot, my mark. Then he began to suck on it. I screamed breathlessly in pleasure, even saying his name and tugging his hair. I felt my knees go weak. My wolf was howling in pleasure as well at being so close to her mate. When I realized what was going on, I pushed Weston's eager lips away from my neck. "Weston," I said breathlessly, "we need to stop." He snapped out of his phase, blushing a bright pink. I untangled myself from him, fixing my messed up shirt and pushing the strands of hair that fell from my ponytail away from my face. Then I shook my head, trying to regain composure. Thomas turned away from me, his back muscles tensing up. Even behind him I could see his hair, messed up from my constant tugging and from my fingers running through them. He was taking quite a large amount of deep breaths. "Weston, are you okay?" I asked with concern, going in front of him. There was still a slight blush on his face and he snapped his closed eyes open and turned away from me again. "Babe," I said again. "What's wrong?" "Nothing." "Stop lying." "Nothing's wrong." "Liar." "Seriously," he said with force this time. "Then why are you not looking at me?" I retorted back. "Because," he groaned, looking up at the sky before looking back at me. His blush had gotten deeper this time. "Do you really want to know?" I nodded, my eyes showing concerned. He turned around and motioned to the huge lump in his pants. "Because I'm trying to calm down," he muttered, hesitantly before looking at the ground in embarrassment. I looked at his face before cracking up. I even fell to the ground in laughter. He looked at me with irritation as I clutched my belly and I began to snort. "It's not funny," he complained as I got back up, trying to hold back my laughter. "Whatever, let's just go home." "I'm so hungry," I said, hearing my stomach rumble in agony. I put my arm around his waist while he put his arm around my shoulder. "Halfway to the house," I said. "It's still funny." "Shut up," he said, pushing me to the ground and leaving me there. I began to laugh again. He was so cute when he was embarrassed. "Hey, Mommy," I said when I got home. I kissed her cheek, grabbing a water bottle from the fridge. "Yeah, my mom and I were all right now. We talked it out thanks to Weston." She explained to me the things Thomas had told me, and even added that my emotions heightened. She told me her stories of when she was experiencing her first few shifts, encouraging me that training was good. "Hey guys," she said, still looking at the magazine she was reading. Thomas and I sat across from her at the counter. "How was training?" "Your daughter is very lazy," Thomas groaned, remembering that he spent 30 minutes arguing with me about running for the third time today. "Whatever," I said, shoving him in the shoulder, which caused him to almost topple over. "It was good. Broke my record. 4 minutes and 38 seconds for 10 miles. Did 400 push-ups and sit-ups and controlled my senses today," I said, rather proud of myself. "You're so narcissistic," Thomas muttered. I heard that. My mom laughed, looking up at me with a big smile. "That's good, honey." Getting better, and her eyes dropped on a spot on my neck. "Is that a hickey?" "What?" I said, blinking at her, and on instinct, put my hand up to my neck. I grabbed my phone, which had a front camera, and inspected my neck. Right on my spot, Thomas had left a dark red hickey. I turned to him, my face going a bright shade of red, and even he was blushing too. However, I was furious with him because I got caught from my own mother. I turned to look at my mom again, who gave out a small chuckle. "Whatever," she said, waving it off. "I'm no threat. As long as you don't get pregnant." "Now that hickey," she said, pointing at it. "Your brother won't be too happy." As if on cue, Darren came into the kitchen and said, "Hey Dan." His eyes zeroed in on my hickey, widening at the red spot. Thomas and I looked at each other in horror. Actually, Thomas looked like he wanted to bolt. However, what caught us both in surprise was the fact that we heard a snort and a chuckle coming from the mouth of my brother. "Dude, I give you props on that one," Darren said, pounding Weston's fist. "You are not bad, man. You are not bad. When I gave Kelly a hickey bro, it did not look like that. Even when my eyes widened and I clamped my ears shut. EW. Shut up. Darren laughed and said, now you know how I feel. You two gross me out. Chapter 25. Tonight was my first official date with Thomas Brown. It's kind of hard to believe that this would be only our first date considering that we've been together for 4 months now. However, he decided to ask me, as corny as it sounds, on a first date for our 4th month as an official couple. Hey babe, Thomas said while we walked out of Jenkins' class together, slinging his arm across my shoulder. I caught a few glares from jealous girls, especially the ones that had a thing with him, if you know what I mean. They were the ones who specifically told me that me and Weston's relationship would last only like 3 hours. Now they scratch their heads in frustration, wondering why we've been together so long. I remember when Jennifer asked me if I put a spell on him or something, trying to spread the rumor that I'm a witch of some sort. Only if she knew the world of werewolves. What do you want? I said monotonously, trying to slip my binder into my school bag. Thomas decided to purposely trip on my ankle, catching himself before he actually fell and embarrassed himself. I looked at him, confusion clear in my eyes. I blinked a couple of times before his cheeks tinted a dark red and his lips stretched into a smile. Am I miss? I began to say. You've got me falling for you, he interrupted with a lame pickup line. So, will you go on a date with me? I couldn't help but laugh. You know the type where you laugh so hard that nothing comes out until the end. Well, that was me. Tears streamed down my face and I clutched my stomach because it started to hurt from laughing so much. I stood up straight when Thomas crossed his arms over his chest and pouted, feigning hurt. It's not funny, he said. If possible, his cheeks became a deeper shade of red. Sorry, I said sincerely, a smile forming on my face. I wrapped my arms around his waist and looked up at him. Are you serious? He nodded, averting eye contact. I went on my tiptoes and kissed his cheeks. I'd love to, I whispered in his ears. And that was the story on how he asked me on a date. It was cute that I was able to make him shy and vulnerable. It made me feel special. Like the only girl that was able to have so much effect on him. I would be lying if he had no effect on me as well. It was about 2 hours before my date, my hair damp and drying into its natural slight curls. And I was freaking out. I was nervous as hell. I was trying to look for an outfit for tonight. Let me tell you, it was hard because he hadn't told me where our date will be held or what we'd be doing. All I know was to wear something casual. My palms were sweating as I rummaged through my closet. My flat iron beeped, causing me to panic for no reason at all due to the cause of paranoia, and because it was a sign that Thomas was going to be here soon. Someone knocked on my door and I jumped. Yup, nervousness took the best of me. I shook my head and rummaged through my closet some more. Come in, I yelled. Hey sis, Kelly said, skipping into my room, her blonde hair whipped into a messy bun. Darren told me you have your first date with Weston, she joked, winking at me. So, I decided to help, much to your brother's dislike for Weston. Thank you, I sighed, ignoring the last part. Help is very much needed. What are you supposed to wear? She said, while rummaging through the other side of my huge closet. Casual attire. It was quiet, except for the sound of the hanger sliding across the metal pole. I started to panic when I couldn't find anything to wear. I knew I should have gone shopping. I just thought with so many clothes in my closet, I'd find something to wear. I'll be right back, Kelly said, looking as if a light bulb flickered on in her head. She dashed out of the room and 5 minutes later, she came back with a dress that was pretty and casual at the same time. My mouth flew open and I had no words to say. It was perfect. I think you should wear this, she said, smiling cheekily at me. I inspected the dress, plain white and sleeveless. The top wrapped around the neck, and it had floral cutouts across the black material. The pleated white skirt probably reached up to mid-thigh. To finish it off, a black bow was attached to the back. Where did you get this? I asked, fingering the material. BCBG. It was on sale, she winked, holding up the dress. Oh, how I love a good bargain. I can't take it, I finally said, shaking my head. I blushed, embarrassed that I was selfish for 10 seconds for actually thinking of wearing Kelly's dress for my own use. Girl, take it, she said seriously. She eyed her wristwatch. You have an hour to get ready. And I'm not going to fight with you. If you don't take it, then I will not let you walk out that front door. And later, you'll just regret it, she began to babble. I chuckled, throwing my arms around her small frame. Thank you so much, I squealed, jumping up and down as Kelly laughed. Afterwards, Kelly decided to help me out, applying minimum makeup. She had only put eyeliner, powder, mascara, and a light pink lipstick, claiming that I was already beautiful without makeup. She even straightened my hair for me. I made a note to myself to repay her for what she's done for me tonight. As she picked up a strand of hair and ran the flat iron through, she asked, "So where is this special guy taking you?" "I have no idea," I said, beginning to feel nervous again. It was 30 minutes until then and I was getting antsy. I could feel my heart pounding in my chest and the beads of sweat running down my forehead, even if it was freezing cold in here. "Oh, a surprise," she teased. She rolled her eyes as she thought of something. "I remember my first date with your brother. He took me to frozen yogurt after a movie. He decided that it would be fun to try to eat 3 full large cups of frozen dairy. So, I went with it, actually liking the idea of going with something different during a date. Little did he know I had a small appetite. I'm sure you noticed that I eat like a bird." I nodded my head, a smile forming on my lips. "So when I was through with my second cup, I began to feel sick in the stomach and then I threw up all over your poor brother. I remember when he took me home that night, my dad thought he got me pregnant and I was going through the symptoms. Boy, did Darren run the fastest I've seen him do that night. My dad took out his rifle. Just to scare him, my dad shot the streetlight." I began to laugh along with her. It was literally the worst date ever. However, it was also the best. Even when I threw up on him, ruined his clothes, and after my dad scared him, he wasn't one of those guys who stopped liking me just because I had a crazy dad or I did something embarrassing in front of him. Before I could say something, she turned my makeup chair around so I faced my mirror and said, "Well, you're all finished, dear. We're running out of time." My jaw dropped. My skin was practically glowing and my hair was straightened to perfection, a side part going through it. I even touched my face to make sure that was really me. "Do you like it?" she asked sincerely, folding her arms across her chest. "I love it," I exclaimed, jumping up and down and hugging her again. "Gosh, I can't repay you for this. Thank you so much." "No problem, sis," she said, rolling her eyes. "Just get ready already." She left the room so I could slip on the dress. I took my black boot wedges and slipped it on, tying the laces. I stood up and did a 360, inspecting myself in the mirror. "Are you done?" Kelly called out. "Can I come in?" "Yes," I said breathlessly, freaking out at my appearance. The door opened and Kelly's jaw dropped as well. "Damn girl, Thomas won't be able to keep his hands off of Emily," my mom called from downstairs. "Weston's here." I began to walk in place, feeling the butterflies in my stomach. Nervousness took the better part of me and I couldn't find the right words to say. To make it worse, I doubted myself. Should I pretend I was sick? Should I go down? What if it's really awkward and I do something embarrassing like Kelly? "Emily," Kelly said sternly, grabbing my shoulders. "It's time to go. Just be confident." I nodded slowly, taking shaky small steps until I was downstairs. Weston's back was facing towards me and my mom was on the couch across from him, her eyes meeting mine. She gasped, her eyes beginning to tear up. "Oh darling, you're so beautiful." Thomas turned around slowly, his eyes meeting mine. My heart stopped as I saw his eyes shining with happiness as he took in my appearance. His smile was genuine as he got up from his spot on the couch as he still stared at me with admiration. His short hair was styled messily. He had worn a blue button-down, the sleeves rolled up to his elbows. Dark rinsed straight fit jeans hugged his butt nicely. To finish it off, he wore black Nike shoes. He kissed my forehead and said, "Hey Els." My eyebrows shot up in surprise as I looked at him straight in the eyes. "What? No lame line like you're beautiful or something?" I asked. Truthfully, I was surprised. Thomas seemed like the type of guy to flatter girls on the first date. "I have nothing to say. You left me absolutely speechless." "That's how gorgeous you are," he said, shrugging. He went as far as to wink at me. "Gosh, who taught you how to be so sweet?" I blushed. He chuckled and kissed my blushing cheeks, making me blush some more. I was lucky my mom had stepped out of the room, wishing us a good time, not hovering like a normal parent. "After you, my queen," he mock saluted, waving his hand towards the door. "You better believe I'm your queen," I joked, laughing afterwards. "Oh my gosh," I said, eyes lighting up as I saw our destination. I literally jumped up and down in excitement. "You are the best boyfriend ever," I shrieked. kissing his cheek as he parked in a parking stall. He rolled his eyes. "You're such an easy person to please. It's just Wendy's." "It's not just Wendy's. You know how much I love this place," I gasped, already getting out of his car. I grabbed his arm and tugged him inside as fast as I could. I took a huge whiff of the smell of food inside, my heart full and content. I closed my eyes and felt like I was in heaven. "You know, you look like an idiot," Thomas whispered in my ear, tangling his fingers with mine. I opened my eyes and glared at him. "Give me peace, will you? You don't have to get all jealous just because I like this place more than I like you. You don't like me because you love me," he teased, tugging me into the line. I felt the heat crawl up my neck and the blood coloring my cheeks. To tell you the truth, I did love him, I just didn't admit it yet. So did he. I was afraid that if I said it, he'd run away, and Thomas was someone I didn't want to lose. "Whatever," I said, slapping his shoulder when he started chuckling. "Just get me my regular. The W cheeseburger with fries and wild berry tea," he confirmed, nodding. "You know it," I said, slapping his butt and searching for a table to sit on. 10 minutes later, we began eating and I gulped down all my food. Thomas and I started throwing fries at each other's faces, laughing at the janitor's irritated expression. I know it was cruel, but I swear that they do nothing. They needed to earn what they get, just like everybody else. The W cheeseburger was kind of me and Weston's thing. Every time we come to Wendy's, we'd eat it, and Thomas would joke that we were the type of couple who have corny traditions. I have to admit, we did have many things that only Thomas and I shared with each other and no one else. I guess it was a boyfriend-girlfriend thing. After we ate, Thomas tugged me to his car, his eyes lighting up with excitement. "What?" I said, confusion clear in my eyes. "You really that excited to bring me home?" he gasped, feigning hurt, his hand clutching his heart. "I can't believe you think this is it. You really think that I'm that cheap of a boyfriend?" "Kind of," I shrugged and laughed as his eyes widened. I hugged him and pinched his cheek. "I'm kidding." I sat in the passenger seat as Thomas closed my door and came to the other side. "So where are you taking me?" I asked. "It's a surprise." An hour later, Thomas pulled up into a parking lot. My eyes widened as it came into view with nothing but a dirt trail leading to something beyond the trees. There was nothing but a single dim street light on. "Is this where you kill me?" I joke, unbuckling my seatbelt and getting out before Thomas could open the door. "You know, you opening your door yourself doesn't make me look like a gentleman. I have a reputation to uphold, you know," he lectured, giving me a serious look. Then he picked me up bridal style, making me squeal and giggle. "And to answer your question, I can't kill you. You need to help me study for the history test first. Otherwise I'd fail." I gasped and began to laugh as I slapped his shoulder. "You're such a dork." He walked on the dirt trail and I secured my arms around his neck, frightened. I've never been here before, so of course I'd be scared. "Relax," Thomas whispered, reassuring me. What confused me was the sound of leaves moving in the distance in rapid motion, and was that the sound of the waves crashing. As we got out into an open space, my jaw dropped open for the millionth time tonight. We were on the beach. It wasn't littered with trash or anything. It was clean with pure white sand. Several dunes were seen here and there. The vast ocean opened in front of me, the waves slapping against the shore, and the light of the moon glittering on the dark water was just so breathtaking. Lined across the far end of the beach were posts, light at the top so you could see at night. There was no one here but the two of us. I don't know what it did, but I felt at peace for once in a long time. Being at the beach was a once-in-a-lifetime chance for me. I came here like only 3 times a year because it was just too far. "It's the pack zone," Thomas said, reading my mind. "It's a private beach just to get away from all the stress and hard work that's been put on us lately." "It's beautiful," I whispered, still observing the beach in awe. "Not as beautiful as you," Thomas whispered, mainly to himself. His tone was sincere and it made my heart melt. Before I could say something, he took off his shoes with his feet. I did the same, kicking off my wedges, happy that it came off easily. He ran towards the water, still carrying me bridal style. "Thomas Brown, you better know," I warned just before he threw me into the ice-cold water, the water closing over me. My head hit the surface. I saw Thomas bent over, laughing. The bottoms of his jeans were the only ones getting wet from standing in the water just a couple inches away from me. Then an idea popped into my head, a mischievous smile creeping on my lips. I faked a scream, going underwater and flapping my arms around so it looked like I was drowning. "Help! I screamed. West Emily. I heard him say, shock evident in his voice. I heard the water splash, a sign that he went in trying to save me. I stood up straight, a smirk stretching across my face. I crossed my arms across my chest as Weston's head broke the surface and he looked at me, eyes narrowed. His hair was drenched and so was his thin shirt, showing off his muscles. Why, you little liar, he said. I squealed and laughed as he caught me off guard, grabbing my legs from under the water and pulling me under. We stayed like that, playing like little kids at the beach. Splashing, laughing, screaming, and just having fun. It was something I needed and I was glad that he took me here. I was sure my lips were already purple, judging from my quivering lips and my shaking body. I got cold fast, and when I was cold I was freezing cold. I tried to rub my arms up and down my arms, but nothing was working, seeing how I was still in this ice-cold water. Thomas tugged my arm until we reached the shore. Gosh, you're such a killjoy, he groaned jokingly as I punched him and clicked my tongue. I'm kidding. He motioned me to sit on the sand. Ugh, you made me ruin Kelly's dress. How am I going to? I shut my mouth closed and gulped as Thomas took off the shirt that was plastered to his body and threw it to the ground. The water drops glistened under the moonlight on his now bare muscles. His back was faced to me, and it took all my willpower not to run my hands down his back as his muscles rippled with every movement. His eyes met mine and he smirked as he noticed me checking him out. What were you saying? He joked, sitting down next to me. Honestly, I did forget what I was saying. He ran his hands up and down my arms, trying to warm me up. I laid my head on my shoulder and groaned as my teeth chattered. My lips are cold and numb. Thank you very much, I said, still shaking. I have a solution for that. I gave him a look, his eyebrows waggling up and down jokingly. May I kiss you, Emily Saunders? Hell no. Oh, come on, just one kiss. He asked, giving me puppy dog eyes, his bottom lip jutting out. I didn't say anything as his face neared mine. I felt the magnetic pull as his lips touched mine softly. He began to kiss me with hunger, his teeth nipping at my lips softly. I moaned gently as he began to push me down on the sand, his hand resting at my side, holding his weight off me. When he was literally on top of me, all of his body touching mine, I began to become breathless. The heat was inevitable, making me crave more of him. He ran his hands up my arms and up my face until it tangled into my curling hair. My hands were on their own accord, roaming down his neck and down his glorious body. I softly and cautiously ran my hands down his abs and up his back, scratching softly and feeling the grains of sand on his body. He grunted and shivered. When I was already becoming dizzy from being out of breath, Thomas pulled away and rested his forehead against mine, panting. His eyes bored into mine, twinkling softly, causing my heart to melt. I gulped and brought my hand to rest on his cheek. Even after seeing this beautiful beach, the pretty stars glittering in the night sky, and the vast ocean that made me speechless, nothing compared to the person in front of me. He was the absolute core of beautiful itself. He was priceless and timeless, and I could never get tired of him. I love you, I whispered, running my thumb across his cheek. I couldn't help the words that came out of my mouth. I didn't regret it either. I really did love him. I didn't think I know. His eyes widened in shock as he untangled his hands from my hair. Being a wolf and sensing him, I could tell he was indecisive. He didn't know what to do next. He sat up, getting off me. Thomas scratched the back of his neck nervously before saying, You know, I'll be right back. I'll just get the towel in the car so you can warm up. I sat up too, a frown making its way on my face. I could feel the tears forming as I watched him walk to the car, his back muscles tense. Wrapping my arms around myself, I scolded myself for being so naive and actually thinking he'd say it back, or thinking that he actually did love me. I was right, he was running away. The echo of a gunshot interrupted my thoughts. My eyes flew open in shock. The scene before me caused my heart to leap out of my chest. I heard a gut-wrenching scream, only to find out that it was my own. My eyes refused to believe what I had just witnessed. Thomas fell to the floor, grunting loudly, and clutched his side where blood gushed out and rolled off his body, coloring the pure white sand. Chapter 26. The doctor walked in, rummaging through some papers on his clipboard. I stood up, my heart racing faster as Jade squeezed my hand harder and stood up along with me. The doctor then said with a serious face, I would like to call on the guests for Thomas Brown's attention. The whole waiting room seemed to fill with silence as all of us paid close attention to the doctor. The tension in the room rose and I could feel the nervousness of everyone. Then what the doctor had said next made us fall to the ground with tears. I just sat there, my mouth wide open. I started shaking vigorously as my world started to spin around me. For some odd reason, I was waiting for the ground to open up and take me whole. To take me from this wretched nightmare. I just couldn't digest the scene that was unfolding before me. It was all too sudden. I felt the bile rise in my throat. I tried to get up but my legs went numb. My stomach felt like someone had punched it where Thomas had got shot, and it was like I was feeling what Thomas was feeling at the moment. I could feel the silver grazing my raw flesh, burning it slowly. But I was too numb to care. I watched as an elderly couple stumbled out from a trail that led to a beach house. Judging from the tattoo on the guy's shoulder, he was part of the Crescent Pack. He held a rifle in both of his hands, his timid wife walking behind him. When her eyes finally landed on Weston, she let out a screeching gasp and took a trembling step backwards. Her hand shook as she covered her mouth. "Oh my gosh, Henry," she cried, patting her husband's shoulder and motioning to Weston's body. "It's the Alpha's son." "Oh my God," Henry said, shocked. Instead of going numb like I did, he rushed over to Thomas and knelt on the ground next to him, dropping his rifle. "Annie, call the cops." I watched as Annie ran as fast as she could towards the beach house. Henry then grabbed Weston's head and said, "Listen to me, Sonny. We will get you help. Help is on the way." Thomas groaned and tried to pick his head up, but he let it fall back again. That's when I snapped out of my shock and ran over to Weston, stumbling over the sand and falling onto my knees next to him. The blood gushed out of his side and I couldn't help but stare at it. My hand shook excessively as I brought it up to my mouth. I could feel the hot tears rolling of cheek, and then I completely snapped. "Weston," I said, sobbing louder. "Westo, West W." My voice quavered and my sobbing had overcome my voice. I shook Weston's shoulders. "Weston, please don't leave me. Please stay with me." Thomas grunted, and only now I noticed his face pale, the blood draining from his face. He was losing too much blood. I clutched his hand, ripped a piece of my shirt and pressed down on his wound. I heard him groan louder. "You may want to calm down," Henry warned. "You're hurting him more than he already is." "Henry," Annie called. I could hear the sirens down the street. "They're coming." "Okay, Han. Can you stand outside and call them over?" A few seconds later, 2 police cars and an ambulance came to a screeching halt, their blue and red lights glowing in the dark sky. I let the police officers pull me back and watched helplessly as Thomas was put onto a gurney and set into the ambulance. One police officer grabbed the yellow infamous tape that read "Caution" and wrapped it around the spot where I could still clearly see Weston's blood. I quickly averted my eyes elsewhere. 2 other police officers were questioning Annie and Henry. One of the paramedics looked at me from the back of the ambulance and asked, "Would you like to come with us?" I quickly nodded, jumping into the ambulance and trying to hold it all together as Thomas lied there in pain. I felt helpless and broken. Clutching Weston's hand, I waited for our arrival at the hospital. I was pacing around the waiting room, itching to run into the surgical room. However, when I tried to follow Thomas after they rushed him out of the ambulance and into the hospital, a couple of hospital guards stopped me and tried to calm me down. So that's how I ended up here. I finally stopped crying, my eyes puffy and red. My hair was a complete mess from the strong wind at the beach. My clothes were still damp and sand was on every inch of my body. However, I didn't care. All I cared about was Weston's safe being. An attendant had offered me coffee as I sat down on the leather-clad chairs. I denied her offer kindly. Sure, the employees here were nice, but I still wasn't feeling okay. The antiseptic smell and the white walls and white tiles were actually driving me crazy. "Where is he?" I heard Jade scream from the front desk. I could tell she was sobbing hard and wasn't taking it well. "Where the hell is my brother? I want to see him now." "Look, ma'am," the secretary began to say calmly. "I'm sorry, but please just take a seat and sit tight. It'll take a couple more hours." "I don't have any more time to wait," Jade cried. I flinched as I heard something fall to the ground. Jade, Jet and Eli had said calmly. Soon the doors were open with Eli and Jet holding a struggling Jade in their arms. Warren quickly followed, his hair messy and his eyes filled with worry. Jet and Eli had sat down and tried to calm down Jade, who was torn. Warren sat next to me and grabbed my hand. Can you tell me what happened? Warren whispered and ran a shaky hand through his hair. At least tell me something. He's my best friend, Emily. I can't bear to not know anything. I told him the whole story, and in between all that, Jade managed to calm down and listen. So did the two other boys. Warren broke down and cried after my story was told, and Jade got angry again, kicking the stand of magazines down. The doors of the waiting room banged open again and Jared walked in with Abigail, their eyes falling on us. I began to break down again just seeing Jared. He was my best friend and I wanted nothing to do but talk to him about all my problems. However, I knew that Jade needed to calm down. The only remedy for that was Jared. He shot me a look of apology for wrapping Jade in his arms. At first she started hitting him, but he never let her go. She eventually gave up and slumped into him, crying into his shirt. Abigail had cuddled with Eli the whole time, probably sensing that he was hurt and broken. When Jet had told Jared and Abigail the story, they went into shock. Abigail stayed with me for an hour. She became my crying shoulder, and eventually moved on to a fidgeting and freaking out Eli. She cried with Eli, feeling his pain. I feel so helpless, Abs. Eli cried and a single tear fell down his cheek. What do you do when the person who stood up for you all those times you've been picked on in junior high is in pain and you can't help? Sure, Eli, Abigail said, rubbing his back in comfort. Everything will be all right. After that, everyone went into complete silence. Obviously, we were all caught up in our thoughts. We were too nervous and anxious that nothing left our mouths anymore. The clock read that it was 3 in the morning and every second it ticked seemed like an hour. That didn't help with my worry at all. Jade sensed my worry and sat next to me, clutching to my hand in silence. I felt thankful for her comfort. She didn't need to say anything but just show me that she'd be there for me. Squeezing her hand, I let her know I'd return the favor. The door opened again. The doctor walked in, rummaging through some papers on his clipboard. I stood up, my heart racing faster as Jade squeezed my hand harder and stood up along with me. Everyone stood up as well. The doctor then said with a serious face, I would like to call on the guests for Thomas Brown's attention. The whole waiting room seemed to fill with silence as all of us paid close attention to the doctor. The tension in the room rose and I could feel the nervousness of everyone. Then what the doctor had said next made us fall to the ground with tears. He looked at all of us straight in the eyes. He then smiled and said, Congratulations. Thomas is fine and has made it through the surgery. You guys can see him in 20 minutes since he's awake. We all erupted into cheers, crying with joy. Thomas was okay. I felt a huge weight being lifted off of my shoulders. I turned to Jade and engulfed her in a big bear hug. She sniffled and laughed. Giving everyone a bear hug, Eli said, If anyone tells him I was crying over him, I will make sure you regret it. We all laughed at him. Jared came to my side and gave me a hug. Congrats, Emily. Now remember, he just got out of surgery. Don't torture him with intercore, Jared. Shut up. I felt queasy as Jared and Jade walked out of Weston's room and it was my turn. I didn't know how I was going to encounter him. I didn't know how he was going to react when he first sees me. Especially after what happened in the beach when I confessed to him. I immediately flushed at the memory. Taking a deep breath, I turned the knob and walked in. The first thing I saw was Thomas on his bed. The sheets pulled up to his chest. A couple of wires were attached to him here and there. And then my heart skipped a beat as his blue eyes met mine. He smiled softly, patting the bed next to him. I sat down slowly, trying not to hurt him. I didn't know what to say, so I just grabbed his hand in mine and started crying. Babe, please calm down, Thomas said softly. I hate seeing you cry. I'm sorry, I laughed. You just really scared the living crap out of me. Come here, he called. I looked at him with reluctance and motioned down to the side he was shot. Don't worry. He positioned himself so he was sitting and grunted a little and finally opened his arms. Slowly, I crawled into him, letting his smell comfort my nerves and his heat radiate onto me. I took a huge intake of his smell into my nose and hugged him back. You really scared me, I muttered and closed my eyes. Don't ever do that again. Thomas kissed my forehead. I'm so sorry I scared. I'm so sorry for everything. But don't you worry. Wolves have the ability to take this better than a regular man, and I'll heal in about a week. A thought popped into my head and I looked at him curiously and shock was evident in my eyes. Weren't they wondering why you were healing faster than usual or why you're not in deep sleep but actually wide awake? No, the doctors here are aware of werewolves. We live in a werewolf-infested town, he chuckled. Emily, about what you said at the beach, Thomas said. I tensed in his arms and he stroked my hair comfortingly. Look, I'm sorry, I began to say. I love you too, Thomas blurted, shutting his mouth after that. I pulled away from him and stared at his eyes, looking for any indication of lying. Instead, all I found was complete honesty and love. I blinked once, too stunned to say anything. What? Was all that came out of my mouth. Thomas said, looking at the space in the middle of my eyes. Man, I have a hard time with these things, he said, getting mad at himself. I tried to stifle in my laughter. I lobe you. I couldn't help but crack up and laugh so hard that I began snorting. Thomas looked at me seriously and blushed from embarrassment. I pecked his lips and said, don't worry, I lobe you too. Don't miss Emily and Thomas's upcoming challenges. Subscribe to our channel for update notifications.